Hey, what's up everybody? How we doing? Shalom, shalom. So my name is Vincent Michael Donata. In English it's Donatelli. Actually it's kind of Italian, but. So I am the CEO and 3D animation director of YHWH Games. And we are live doing some Twitch stuff. Today is Game Design 101. And we're going to be going over this a little by little here. Just want to make sure I'm getting in the right chat room. Everything is looking pretty good on Twitch. All right, this is good stuff. I am very excited to be doing this today. This video has been one of those videos that's been a long time coming. And so I got Photoshop to open. It's good for the intro. And you know, we got a new guy on our team named Esteban Veras, and he is a really good good 3D artist for ZBrush. And I just, you know, there's a style that he has that there's like no vocabulary word for what he does in regards to line work. And you know, I wanted to give this to him. So hey Esteban, I know that we haven't had a chance to talk all that often, but I'm looking forward to do many of these little lessons, not just for you, but for the rest of the world. And you know what? I'm pretty much ready to go. As long as Photoshop's gonna be opening. So, game design, guys. Game design. You know, what's the most important aspect of a game? Is to play it, right? You don't want to pick up a game and it's too hard that you put it down, and it's too easy that you put it down. So we're going to talk about an arc, a little curve that we call fun factor. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the individual steps that it takes to make a game. But before we really get into all of the technical stuff on how we're going to make the game, we're going to talk about the philosophy of what it means to be a video game artist and an animator. So I guess before I get into all that too, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about YHWH Games. So I'm the CEO and 3D animation director for YHWH Games. Today is Wednesday, what is it, September 6th. It's 9 in the morning. Well, almost 5 more minutes, so time to start the day. Hopefully this podcast won't take more than 2 hours. And YHWH Games is a life coaching and mentorship program that also makes revolutionary video games. That's pretty much it. There are virtually 0 video game companies in existence that actually not only make games, but then actually teaches people how to make games. So we're one of those companies that actually does both. And you know, the biggest reason why we do both is because I love to teach. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that you know, I like bringing people knowledge and stuff that I've learned. Sorry, I'm gonna make sure I got the chat window open while I'm talking. There we go. I don't want to ignore anybody or ignore anybody's questions. So, you know, this is one of the aspects of our company right here, right now. Let's teach people how to make some games. You know, people think, oh, well, you know, we just need a couple artists and a couple of programmers, and we can get going. And you know, to a tiny degree, that's true. But you know, there's some thought that you want to get into, and before you start anything. So let's start a new document and let's get into some thought. So whenever we make new documents for presentation, it's always 1920 by 1080, and it's also known as 1080p. All right, so let's get into it. So there are 7 cultural mountains. 7 cultural mountains. 7 cultural mountains. Now, what the heck does this have to do with game design? Now, believe it or not, everything, guys. I think that one of the most important aspects of the video game industry is what we call a transferable skill. And a lot of people think that, a video game is incredibly difficult to get in, and you're going to be a starving artist. And you know what? Come on. There's a science to getting into the video game industry, and a lot of it has to do with your advertising ability. And we'll get into that in a moment. But what we know for sure is that even if you don't get to break in immediately, you have to know about where else your video game experience and your knowledge can be applied. So there's 7 cultural mountains. These things make up the word, or in our society we call it culture. Now we're going to get into this. So let's but this is a deceptive word. So family, we've got government, we've got arts and entertainment, we've got the news. All right, the news media. We've got education. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll just do 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have religion. And we have economy. Right? Economy, you can also call it business. All right. Your financial system, bartering is part of economy. So you have these different things. Now I like to be interactive when I teach this lesson. Made my mouse size a little smaller, brush size. Can video games be done for family? Can you apply video games for family? Well, sure. There's all kinds of different. It's called gamification. Let's write that down. Gamification. Another way that the industry has changed the words is also called serious games. If you wanted to call it another word, you can actually call it training. Okay? These 3 things are like industry standard terms. For example, if we have a math class, we could teach students higher level math by gamifying a lesson plan rather than just trying to teach out of a textbook. I work with a company called Tangerine Pop in California. So write them down. Tangerine Pop LLC. Tangerine Pop, run by David Kursina, and really brilliant man. Like he's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and I think he's been doing the video game industry for over 30 years. I've got 18 years, and actually it'll be 18 at the end of the month. Pardon me, my nose is really itchy. But so what Tangerine Pop does, as I know we were talking about family, and we're going to move into education because that's the way the flow of the conversation went. But Tangerine Pop, they focus on gamifying the education system. So he has math and language, like teaching people languages. He has curriculums that he's designed, and his game design, he teaches young people higher end learning in math. And so 2 of his kids, one of them's 13, and he's already doing algebra. Like, it's crazy. Like, my son's 13, and he's still on whatever 8th graders are being taught in middle school. Like, I know he's not doing algebra yet, but he's doing high-end algebra, and I know that that David was saying that he's going to be doing calculus in the next couple years, like without a doubt. Like, and so it's because of his curriculum. And so what he's doing is he's trying to work with the state of California to bring his educational games into the public schools. Okay, but we can also use this principle, this metaphor, and apply it to family. We can teach parents how to be parents. We can teach them how to deal with an infant, how to deal with a toddler. There is parenting classes, and I've been to a couple parenting classes. I think that if you decide that you're going to want to be a parent, I highly recommend them. It gets into the psychology of understanding how child think and how adolescents think and how teenagers think, and you can make games out of that. So now let's move out of the family. Let's talk about government. Government, you can absolutely have political games, and I remember during like the last 2 elections, there were iPhone games and Android games about, you know, different candidates and what their policies were, and it was like a trivia type of game. But you can absolutely apply video games to governments. We got government, we got family, we did education, the arts and entertainment. How about that? Can we do video games in there? Well, actually, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the arts and entertainment industry is the video game industry. It is one in the same industry, guys. So this is an absolute. Okay, news and media. Can we make video games for the news and make video games for the media? This is already happening. If you go to certain news websites, they want to engage a younger audience, so they know that if they're going to try to engage a younger audience and try to get them involved in with the government and politics, because guess what? The government uses the news to drive facts, and the news drives facts to the government, and the news runs all of this anyways, or at least tries to, right? How about we make a better line, Vince? All right. The news controls all of this anyways, regardless of how you feel. Like, this is the reality of what's happening. Okay, so we already talked about education. We're going to skip religion for a minute. Can you make economy-based video games? Yes, as a matter of fact, most video games that are called RTS, real-time strategy, are based on economy. An example of this would be Command and Conquer, StarCraft, the old Warcraft systems, economy-based games. You can actually learn quite a bit from an RTS. Now, what about religion? Religion, out of all of these things, seems to be the oddball in the group. But let's analyze this for a minute. For those of you who've ever played anything from Square Enix, Final Fantasy. All right, that name should ring a bell, Final Fantasy. So let's take a look at some Final Fantasy summons for a minute. Let's look at Final Fantasy 15 Leviathan. All right. So how about, hey, there we go. That's a good image there. We got Leviathan. Now, is it a she? Is it a he? It doesn't matter. It's godlike. The objective, part of the mini objective in this game is how many of these different summons can you pick up. All right. Oh, there's the head up close. It's pretty awesome. And I'm just trying to see. I think Noct is over here, main character, just to give you the idea of scale of how large this thing is. Now, what about Titan? All right, there's Titan. And what does Titan do? Titan in mythology had always carried a stone, large boulder on his back. All right, so there he is. What about Rama? All right, Rama. Oh, that's the old Rama. So there he is, big old face. He's got his lightning staff. Let's see, we get a big picture of him. That's another cartoon drawing. It's a good camera angle. So, you know, what's my point? What's the point of bringing this up? Absolutely, religion is involved in video games. Absolutely, it is involved. Don't know who this character is. I don't remember. Ravis? There must be an expansion pack. Okay, what's my point? My point is, every Final Fantasy game has priests and priestesses and summoners and somebody regarding religion because they're paying homage to godlike beings. So absolutely, religion and video games work together. It's just not commonplace. And so that's part of what we do at YHWH Games is we tackle this subject. I think just too many people are not only afraid of it, But even if they had the ability to do it, I don't think that they know how to do it. And I think it's because they don't have the jurisdiction to do it, where we do have the jurisdiction to do it. Oh, almost forgot. Culture. The whole reason why I brought this up, guys, the word culture, if you look it up, let's get the black ink. Culture. The word literally means, let's take out the quotes. How about we do that? XB. It's culture. It means to produce. And in our day-to-day life in 2018, I'm about to date my video with all that right now. The word culture isn't used in this way. It's usually used in terms of ethnicity, like you have the Mexican culture, you have Chinese culture, you have Japanese culture. It has to do with the ethnic flavor. That's how we use the vocabulary word. But if you actually look it up, Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, the word means to produce. Now, who are you producing for? And why are you producing? Have you ever thought of that? Have you ever taken that into consideration? What is the video game industry producing? What are they doing? So I want to explain to you guys what YHWH Games does, why we're different. So we have a program called Woven. At first, when we were starting this up, it was called VOW. V-O-W. Okay? It was veterans, it was orphans, and widows. Okay? Veterans, orphans, and widows. And as I was teaching this, a really good friend of mine now named Chris Horn. Hey Chris, if you get to watch this, what's up? He just jumped up out of his chair and started doing some stuff on the board, and so he just rearranged some stuff. So now we have widows, orphans, veterans, those in need of emergency assistance, and the neglected. All right, so each of these, we are working with different groups of people in order to give back to our community. So we have, we work with a ministry called Temple Beth Yeshua in Southwest Houston. They have a widows ministry. We have a gentleman that we're going to be supporting named Julio Gonzalez Jr. He's one of my oldest friends, but he goes to Acuna, Mexico, and he has 5 orphanages that he takes care of and a 6th one that he's negotiating with. Okay, United States veterans. I love the veterans both for Israel and for our United States government, and I feel very strongly in my heart that we should be taking care of them, taking better care of them, rather than just making them wait at the VA. And I think the VA is a very difficult structure. But if you guys know anybody who works with veterans, give me their information. I want to work to try to help veterans out. Okay, emergency assistance. My good friend Juan Gonzalez, he passed away a couple years ago from melanoma cancer, and his family was like, they inherited all these bills, and I want to do what I can to help their family and then other families like them. It's a very tragic situation, and I want people to be able to apply for funding and let us help them. So we are trying to work with an organization called One Up on Cancer, and I'm very impressed with what they do, and I really want to be one of their partners. So, and then the neglected. Neglected is homeless, and so we have actually 2 different partners that we work with. One is named Andrew Lozano. Andrew Lozano lives in Houston, and he takes care of Spring Branch ISD. He used to be in a gang. Now he's a pastor at the Darrington unit and the Luther unit in prison. But he also goes into Spring Branch ISD for mentorship, and he also works with one of this group, Carlos and Juanita Taller Ministries. They do homeless ministry, and so he works with them, and then he also does men's ministry. So we try to do our best to try to support what he's doing too. And so part of our objective is let me try to explain like why Woven and what it is that we do. So you make a game, right? So you got a game. It's a little controller, right? You make a game, and then it's going to produce money. And this is the current model of the video game industry. But who's this money going to, right? Like, who exactly is getting this money? Usually it just stays within the video game company, and then once they start moving funds around, then they can make a new game. And for business and as a business model, this model works. You have to raise capital. So there's this money, there's this mysterious money over here in the beginning. Like, where does all this money come from? And then you make a game, and then you have to do something with this other mysterious capital. Where are you getting this capital from? And this capital is for advertising the game. And then once you get enough people looking at your game, then it makes money. And then you again filter the money back into the company and make a new game. So what we want to do is we want to take some of this money and put it back into these guys. Because now where did this come from? Like, why is this a thing? Why do I even care? When I graduated college, my grandfather, Thomas Franco, the day after graduation, I got a chance to see him, and I was showing him my demo reel, and he's like, I just, to this day, I don't understand how your industry benefits society. And so he told me that like 18 years ago already. And dang, I don't even realize it's got to be more than that. It's got to be closer to 20, because that's when I graduated school. So when he said that to me, it really stuck with me, and I never forgot it. So that's why we do this. We're wanting to give back to community. This should affect, and I know there are video game companies that do this, but it seems to be the exception, but not the rule. It's actually quite sad. So where do we go from here? I know you guys are coming in here for a video game knowledge and video game lesson, but like, let's be honest. It's got to be more. We got to do something more, and then not just do the same thing we've been doing. So forgive me while I'm looking up on my phone. I got my notes. One day my phone will open. So what I want to do is I want to transition into moving into the type of people that we work with. So when I say, hey, how do you break into the video game industry, I'm giving you an example of my business and the people that I want, right? So number one, let's look for acquisition. So acquisition. Hopefully I spelled that right. Acquisition. So if I want acquisition, who am I looking for in the video game industry? What kind of individual, like, do I really want? The first thing that I really want, believe it or not, is I want somebody who's hungry. I want somebody who's hungry. I don't want just a talented individual, even though that is a requirement. So let's put some talent on here. I actually look for hunger more than I look for talent. Now, talent is an interesting thing because this seems to be the dangling of the shiny thing. Hey, look what I have. And why don't you come talk to me? Artists do this thing like, look what I can do, look what I can do. And business people, they don't give a shit. They say, what can I sell? What can you sell? What are you selling? Right? If I find two artists and they have the same exact resume and their portfolio is very identical, If one person is selling stuff and the other person isn't, I'm going to pick the one who's selling stuff, because they already understand what I need as a businessman. They understand that their product has to get out, because the more products that they get out and the longer that they kind of sit on the shelf, if they're advertising the product, then people are going to buy it. So I need hungry people. I want talented people. I want people who want to do business. What else do I want? I want people who are humble. This goes a long way with me. Okay? And ethical. Okay. Essentially, this is my mini list of who I'm looking for. I'm looking for this in students, and I'm looking for this in coworkers. Okay? Just first of all, like when I say coworkers, YHWH Games has no employees. I have no desire to have employees, and I don't think I'll ever have employees. Employees insinuate that I'm lording over somebody. I want to work with people. I don't want to lord over people. Now, I know in a project you have to have somebody experienced, you have them in charge, but it's the difference between talking to people and the difference between talking at people. So that's why I say humble people are very welcome here. Who I don't want anybody who's arrogant. I don't want anybody who's lazy. I don't want anybody who's who doesn't take initiative. Okay? I do want people who are responsible. Okay? I'll take a dude like Esteban any day of the week. Like, dude's got 5 kids. He's got a wife. That dude right here, responsible. But you cannot have children and not be responsible. Like, that's irresponsible if you're going to do that. I know that there are families that do that, but if you're taking care of your family, come talk to me. I want to do what I can to help you guys out. You know, that's part of our business model. Oh, you know what? Who I forgot to mention over here is we work for the neglected. We work with this company called Unlimited, and we're going to be making prosthetic arms for children that basically have been amputated and still have kind of a nub over here. Actually, let me pull them up. They're worth talking about. Let me skip down. So here's Julio. He helps with the orphans, and then here's the team for One Up on Cancer, and then here's Unlimited. These are the type of prosthetic arms. We're going to be building this stuff out. All of these are 3D printed. You know, I think these this company is absolutely fantastic. They're out of England. All right, and then over here's Andrew Lozano, and he's the one who works with Voices of the Streets, and he's the one who's doing all the outreach. Okay. So let's go back. I totally got off subject. Okay. Talking to people, then talking at people. I don't want anybody who's narcissistic. Forget it. I don't have time for that. Like, you have to understand something about me as an individual and other business people. Business people aren't business people strictly in terms of business. There's a large part of psychology that we study because we want to be better leaders. If you want to be a better leader, you have to understand how the mind works, and you have to understand how the brain works. So let's get this. Like, the topic right now is talent acquisition or student acquisition. So let me explain how we kind of see things over here on our side of the world. So we have our brain, right? And, you know, it's a very complex piece of equipment. We have the right side of the brain. We have the left side of the brain. So right side is caring. Left side is logic. Now, if you want to understand people, you need to understand these two mechanics on how people think. Okay? Right brain caring, left brain logic. There are people who, if we're solely right brain, they think very emotional. They think with their emotions. They think with their feelings. All right? If you're emotional and think with your feelings, it's not a bad thing. And you just have to keep in mind, this is not to say this is good or bad or good or evil. This is not what this is. This is to educate, to understand how people tick, right? Logic people are procedural. Okay, they're procedural. They have a process. They use high level of reasoning. Okay? Sometimes they come off cold. And of course, caring people are very warm. Now, it's very funny, but artists have a tendency to think with their right brain, and programmers have a tendency to think with their left brain. So left brain is higher level math. Right brain is higher level creativity. Okay? Now, what's really interesting about me is there's another aspect around here, is women have a tendency to be right brained and men have a tendency to be left brained. So what does this information do for you? Why should you really care? Well, when you understand that certain groups of people think this way and certain groups of people you can think this way, you can come up with a strategy on how to talk to a person, how to talk with a person, not talk at a person. I can't stand it when people talk at me. And like I am totally fine with working with agnostic and atheist people as long as you're humble. Everybody has the right to free think, to free speech, and to really communicate what they feel on the inside. But the moment that I hear a religious person start talking at a person, you need to do this and you need to do this and this is what this book says, I'm turned off. And most people are turned off because you're not talking with a person, you're talking at a person. Okay? Now, I have to say this. I really feel like left brain people talk at people. They don't talk to people. I feel like right brain people absolutely talk to people. They talk to, not at. And one of the traits, how do you know if you're talking to a person or you're talking at a person? I'm so glad you asked. This is called being self-aware. Self-awareness is a very magical thing. Self-awareness it's like gold. It's precious. When you're self-aware and you're self-conscious about how you are with other people, you have a tendency to really not want to hurt anybody. It's coming from a place of love and joy and some people can say that this is timidness, but let me explain something to you guys. Let's do this. Okay, if we go right over here, we got this scale: arrogance, confidence, anointing. Another name for this is what we call a calling. Okay. Over here, this is where humility is. Now, I'm not saying humility as in to humiliate someone. I'm saying humility as in meekness, as in humbleness, all right? It's not really humbleness, it's humility, all right? That's the proper way of saying it. You have arrogance, and you have confidence, and you have humility. Arrogant people, I can't stand them. And I think that people who are right-brained have a very difficult time distinguishing between confident and arrogant people. They don't know the difference. They don't know that there's a fine line between the two. And there is a definitive line between confidence and arrogance. Arrogant people operate in pride. They're always right. You can't tell them anything, and they're very difficult to talk with because they talk to people. I'm sorry, they talk at people. At. And then over here, humility people, humble people talk to people. So you have arrogant, pride, and we have confidence. Now, you can be confident and really like be in the middle, right? And that's why I think that this is a good place to put confidence, is right dead in the middle between the two. Because you can be humble and you can be prideful. It just depends on the situation, right? But so even though this is situational, right? Arrogant people operate off of lifestyle. And I think that humble people operate off of a lifestyle. Okay? Now, yes. Oh, what does this have to do with game design? I understand the topic, but you guys have to understand in the terms of business, you have to understand how people think. If you don't understand how people think, how can you build a team? How can you ensure that your 2D artist and your 3D artist are going to work together? If you put an arrogant person in the same room with a humble person, it's going to work, because this person is going to out alpha this beta. On paper, okay? On paper, an alpha is an arrogant individual and a beta is somebody who's meek. But this is not true. I don't believe this at all. I believe absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, that I'm an alpha. But I try my best to operate over here out of humility and meekness, because Moses was the meekest man that ever lived. And if you actually read the accomplishments that Moses did in his life, this dude was alpha all day. Not only was he alpha, he was borderline omega. And I'm going to be writing a book here in the next few years called The Omega Male. All right. So, if you have somebody who's absolutely humble and who's an alpha, and you have somebody who's arrogant and who's an alpha who operates out of pride, by default, you're going to have a clash. Two alphas can't technically be in a room together. It's very difficult for them to get along. You can put two betas in the room together and they'll be fine. You can put an alpha and a beta in a room and they're fine. You can put a beta and an alpha in a room and it'll be fine. But when you put two conflicting personalities in the room, you need a mediator. You need a mediator. You need some, and essentially, that's what managers do. And they manage between alpha behavior and beta behaviors, and alpha to alpha behaviors. If you're going to build a team, you have to understand how people think. I guess you don't have to. You can just pay them and just say, I'm not paying you to do, or I'm not paying you to think, I'm paying you to produce. But see, then you're doing that thing where you're talking to people again. You're not talking, I'm sorry, you're doing that thing where you're talking at people again and not talking to people again. So we don't want to do that. I don't want people in my business who are going to talk at people. I want people going to talk with people. Self-awareness understands all of these things. Now, what happens if you're not responsible, but you want to be responsible? Well, that's maturity, right? And I want to work with people who want that for themselves, because that just means they want to grow and they're willing to grow, and they're willing to go through the pain of growing. What happens if you're not ethical, but you want to be? What is ethics? Ethics is, if I'm paying somebody to do a job, and somebody else comes around and says, I'll pay you more money and you just come work for me. Pardon me. Ethics is, no, I'm not going to go work with you until this job's over. I committed to this. This is the ethical decision. I need to make sure that I commit to this. Right? That's the right way of doing things. Being humble, being meek, it's being able to be teachable. It's being able to be willing to listen. You listen more and you talk less. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So are you willing to not just listen to what the person says, but what are they really saying in the depths of their soul, and what are they really saying in the depths of their heart? Okay? And I don't know if you guys even know this, but there's quite a difference between soulish behavior and spiritual behavior. That's a completely different topic too. So I've met plenty of people who are arrogant and talented. Whoops. I am more willing to work with a less talented individual if they're humble and highly committed than they are if they're prideful and talented. Just because you can get the job done doesn't mean I want to work with you if you're going to be an asshole. Like that's just it. So talent doesn't mean entitlement. And I think that you guys who are in a millennial generation, you guys got to get out of that mindset. Somehow you guys feel entitled to everything, and I don't know where that came from. It could be because you only had one parent in the house, and having a lack of another parent telling you to grow up and get mature and deal with it. You know, there should be no entitlement. Like, even the air you breathe is a joy. You have to understand that just because you breathe air, there are plenty of other people that breathe air in other places in the world, and their living condition is horrible. Don't feel entitled. Learn how to be humble. You know, this kind of leads me to say this is so many different people in this world. I'm going to target men when I say this. They don't know how to talk to women. They don't know how to talk to them. They talk at women. And it's very strange, but a guy who plays video games will be so quick to go online and look up the best strategy on how to tackle this new situation, but they won't even look up a strategy guide to talk to women. And I think that that's a really sad way of looking at life. They think that they just know it all. All right. All right. So let's move on. By the way, when I say I want a hungry individual, I want somebody who's highly committed. I want somebody who's in it for the long game. I want somebody who's not just in working with me for the long game. I want them to be able to want to invest in themselves. And, you know, I have a lot of experience to give to people, and I want to help people out so much. And I work with an amazing group of individuals who know that I just want to pour out into them. And I'm very appreciative of that. All right, so let's move on to the next subject. Okay. So let's talk about something different. We're going to talk about sprints. Let me read to you guys what I wrote in my notes. Assets are individual assignments that have been specified by upper management and inventoried within a document called an asset control list. The employee is then required to achieve the creation of the asset through the combination of having the best quality given under the budget and the time frame provided. This is called an asset sprint. Within the workplace, each employee or each person that we work with, now this statement was designed for people who go to work for somebody else, right? Not for me. Within that workplace, each employee is responsible for being tasked with assignments and having the skill, technique, and discipline in order to achieve asset sprint goals and deadlines. So let me explain that. Let's break that statement down. In game design, now we're really kind of moving into the nitty-gritty of it. We're kind of leaving the philosophy. We're leaving and departing from the ethereal aspect of what it is to be a video game artist. Now let's get into what it takes on the manager side. So, whoops. Asset control list. Okay, ACL. Now, depending on where you work, it's actually not called an ACL. This is just what we call it here. It's just an acronym that is very easy to identify when you're talking with someone. It's in the spreadsheet, or it's in Jira, or it's in Pivotal Tracker, right? It's still an asset control list. What are you doing? You're controlling assets in a list. Simple. So an asset control list is broken down into 6 major camps. Okay. Part of this still is understanding the philosophy, okay, because we're getting into how managers think. But this particular portion is designed for you to understand how artists think. All right. So we have 6 major categories of art that video games are comprised of. We have actors. We have vehicles. You know, I was doing that yesterday. Vehicles. We have dynamic props. Okay. We have environments. We have architecture. And we have static props. Now, these... Sorry, put this line over here. Now, these 3 up here are known as skeletal meshes. And these over here are called static meshes. In other words, these 3 have bones and bone structures, and these 3 don't. Typically, the environment stuff nowadays is controlled by materials and also scripts, depending on what engine you're in. So actors could be, you know, animals or humans, you know, the protagonist. Vehicles, we have, you know, land, air, and sea. Spaceships are still considered aerial vehicles. Dynamic props are anything, again, with moving parts. So, like, in the Transformers movie, Optimus Prime had a sword that transforms. You have... In Monster Hunter World, you have the... What's that axe called? Why is that departing from me? Switchblade. Switchblade. So it basically transforms from a sword to an axe, or an axe to a sword. Okay. There are other transformable items in that game too. Prototype. I can't remember the names. It doesn't matter. Guns is another thing. You got a trigger assembly. You've got an iron sight. You've got rail sights. You've got scopes. Anything that you're going to make multiple attachments to. Okay. They need sockets. So we've got you know, buttstock, bipod, you know, magazine, that kind of stuff. Anything that has a bone structure in it, we need to be able to do this. Environment. Environment is comprised of 4 things. We've got foliage. We've got water, H2O. We've got terrain, Terra, and skybox. All right, architecture. I'm just going to move this over a little bit. We have interior, exterior. We have residential. We have commercial. And we have industrial, etc. Okay? And then static props. All right, I have to say this because Scott's probably going to watch this. He also said, well, what about military? Some military, you know, buildings, they have to be collapsed. You know, it's kind of crazy, and he's right. Okay, so if we put military here, military buildings, like a FOB, a forward operations base, they actually kind of work with dynamic props because it's a military architectural building, plus it needs bones. So, you know, it's a little bit of both, all right? There you go, Scott. I got it in there for you, man. I didn't forget. Static props. Static props are like, you know, when you play a game. Let's look at some static props, as a matter of fact. Let's look at Metal Gear Solid. Let's try Metal Gear Solid, and then we'll do Otacon Rescue. There was this. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. Old PS1 game. It was actually my friend Ryan Buck, my really close friend Ryan, was like, Vince, you talked about this game so much in college. I don't honestly remember it, but, you know, throwback to Ryan. What's up, dude? So we have these computers that were destroyed. You have the keyboards that are down here that are just textures. You have this desk, right? You have this locker. Now, some lockers were interactive and some were not. You know, looking at what else can we see? You know, the cubicles. Okay, those are static props. You can kind of buck up against them, and those are walls. You can kind of rest up against them, but they don't have any interactivity. Okay, it's just static. I'm just trying to see if there's any other examples I can give you. I think for the most part I communicated it pretty well. Okay, now I said we were talking about how artists think. Now you have to understand something about an artist. Typically, one artist cannot do all 6 of these really, really well. Okay, one artist can only do 2 well. Now, for example, I have dealt with so many people in my life who have said, "You can draw better than me, so by default, you should be able to do all this stuff." That might be true, but that's not how artists think. If you remember, part of this conversation was quality, time, and budget. In business, you can only really choose 2. You can't have all 3 of these. So if you want quality, it's going to take time, and it's going to destroy your budget. If you want budget, well, your quality is going to suffer because you have to get this stuff done in the most ample amount of time as possible. And if you want to be fast, your quality is going to suffer. So really, most video game companies operate from this place: time and budget. Now, when I say most, there was over 2,500 something video game companies. Let me look at my statistics. I actually wrote that down. Let's look at the facts. I like being factual, not guessing here. There are 2,457 video game companies in the U.S. as of a study that was done. It was earlier this year or as of last year. Okay, 2,457 video game companies in the U.S. There's only like 50, under 50 that are AAA, meaning that they can have all of these. But you have to understand something. Even in the 343 space for Halo, you have to get your quality as fast as you can in the budget. There's no choice. Their sprints are heavy duty, and you have to have some crazy endurance to be able to do all 3 of these. You don't have a life. You're on salary, and they don't care about your time. They care about the quality. They care about your budget. Okay. But artists can only do 2 of these really well. So if you have an artist and they can do actors and vehicles like really well, but then you put them into to a situation where they have to draw environment and foliage stuff, your time has automatically declined, and so did your quality, because you're putting them in an uncomfortable situation. It's like saying you're going to take a veterinarian, which, by the way, have the ability to do surgery on animals, and you're going to make them do brain surgery on a human. You can't do that. And it's like saying you're going to take a mechanic who knows how to fix a car and saying that you're going to, put them in a situation where they have to operate on an animal. You can't do that. Just because you know how to fix something doesn't mean you should go out and fix another career's industry. You shouldn't be doing that. So, if you're going to be a responsible manager, just put the right person in the right job. Put the right person for the right job. Now, let's say, for example, you hire this artist. You're really happy with this artist. You put him on salary. And you want this person to have work, so you make them do all 6 of these things. Why are you doing that? Why don't you, instead of paying that person a salary, why don't you pay them piecework and tell them, look, I'll pay you, $30 for an 8.5 by 11 sketch. And on that sketch, I just want poses. And then once we're done with those poses, I'll pick out the best ones that I like. And so what do I mean? Let's walk through this. Concept silhouettes. Can never spell that word right. This is exactly what I want. Okay. Yeah. 8.5. Give me an 8.5, 11 piece of paper, or like they did a golden ratio with two perfect squares, right? I'll give you $35 for this, and then we'll pick out the best ones, and then I'll pay you, $150 for a fleshed out version of this, and then we'll give it to a turnaround artist, which we'll get to in a minute. All right? You're paying this person piecework. You're putting them in the zone, and they can knock this stuff out, and they want to get paid. So why not just do piecework? Animators work on piecework anyways. What you're going to do is you're going to save money. You know, out of calculations that I've done, and I've spent a lot of time doing the math on this. It takes about 50 people and $4 million for 2 years worth of work to make a video game. And there are video games that were done for less than that. Of course there are. But in terms of speed, the objective is to try to hit all three of these in your game. Okay? It's not always about the budget. Now, I'm going to bring this topic up real quick because I think this is important to address. For those of you who've ever worked in construction before, let's say the project takes $4 million. Whoops. $4 million. You have a start, you have a middle, you have an end. Start, middle, end. How come over here when they're trying to estimate the size of a building and they say, oh, we want to make this building, yeah, of course it costs $4 million, but why don't we make it 3? Why can't we just make it for $3 million? And then the contractors are like, and the project superintendent and the project manager's like, well, if we do that, we're gonna have to cut some major corners, and we're gonna have to get some. Remember, because we got to deal with this quality, time, and budget thing. Let me make sure I'm on time and budget. Sorry, I want to keep it all consistent. Quality, time, and budget thing. Well, we want to get it done in time. We have to get it done in time. We have to get it done. We have to get the doors open. So we're going to drive the quality down. And so this way we should be able to make our budget. It's inevitable on the jobs that I've seen and that I've worked on and listening to my dad and listening to other people. When they get to this point, there is so much calamity and so much stuff that went wrong. All of a sudden, an extra $1 million shows up to fix problems. If they would just budget it out and get the right people on the job the first time, they wouldn't have to worry about shorthanding everybody, hiring the worst contractors, and screwing the budget up and screwing the time up in this last little quarter, 25% of the job. I've worked on games where this is like this. They are like so close to getting done and they don't have the money, but and then they find out, oh, this person that we hired, this person's not working out and we need to figure out how to get rid of this person. Well, we told you that in the beginning. They don't want to hear that crap. They don't want to hear their shortcomings. I just don't understand this magic 25% where this magic number, this last little bit of money comes from. Budget the project correctly the first time and get the right people in the right position. I even wrote a paper on this. I even wrote a paper on how long it takes for something to get done. And I had a comment, no, that's crap, that's garbage. That's because they're not looking at this last little bit of this last 25% of the last little bit to get the game out, okay? Now, while we're on this topic, now I understand that we were transitioning, just so you know, we're staying on topic, okay? We're talking about the people that we want to work with. We're talking about the students that we want to work with. Now we're talking about the type of artists that we need and the type of artists that you need. We're talking about the money that it takes to do the game, right? So now there's this thing that we have to deal with in regarding the departments and the phases. Okay. Just make sure I'm not losing my train of thought. We'll get in. We're going to get into phases, and we're going to get into this advertising budget. Okay. So let's write down the phases of game development. So we know that we have to create all these assets, but when we create assets, are they done in phases? Yes, of course they're done in phases. So let's write them out. So let's write previs, pre-visualization, previs. We have pre-production. We have production. We have post-production. We have QA, and we have market distribution. Okay? I don't understand why, but this is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about. Okay? So, these are phases. Okay? Phases of production. All right, phases of production. Hold on a second. All right. That's in case I want to divide the video later. I can see the spike in the audio and cut it. Okay, phases of production. What we can do is when we identify the phases of production, previs is also known as the vertical slice. It's also called proof of concept. Okay? It's also known as placeholder. The objective of the pre-visualization phase is, can we prove that our game, A, can be done, B, the functions can be done, and C, is the game fun? So essentially what happens is you take pre-production, post-production, production, and maybe a little bit of post-production, and you cram it all in to get the vertical slice done during the previs phase. This is the most important phase of the whole entire project. And what happens is, I've seen and I've been involved with many indie video game companies that all they do is, because of what they were taught in school, they start with pre-production, but they really don't know how to get their game out in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops. Like, when I mean out, I mean like, can you put it in somebody else's hand and have them play the game? And it doesn't matter what the quality of artwork is. Can you prove you can do what you can do? So I use this analogy a lot when describing Spider-Man. Spider-Man without the web slinging component is not a Spider-Man game. Can we put Spider-Man on a pendulum and have him launch forward and carry some momentum? Can that be done? So step one is, can we do a pendulum? Step two is, can we do a zip line from his wrist to basically casting a ray from his hand to wherever he's aiming, and have something and do a trace, and it spawns a mesh and we can go out over there? Can we do that? Now, if we can swing, can we let go? Okay, if we can let go, now can we apply momentum to the pendulum and continue, acquiring momentum faster and faster and faster? Each one of these is a little step, and then we have to reassess. Now, is this fun? What can make it more fun? And we write down all of these different things. Well, would it be awesome if Spider-Man corkscrewed through the air? Well, it'd be really awesome if he did both and he rubber banded himself. Both zip lines. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we could have Spider-Man run up the wall? So you have to write down all of these functions. Can we do these functions? If you can't even do the functions, what are you going to pre-production for? That's the truth. So, what is pre-production exactly? We're going to get into that in the next slide. Pre-production is actually drafting and planning artwork. Drafting and planning artwork. If you can't draft and you can't plan your artwork, then you can't even get into production. I've met people that they just want to skip this phase, and they want to skip this phase, and they want to go right into production. They just want to produce something. I can tell you, if you have blueprints, man, it makes your life so much easier. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna break each one of these down a little further in a little while. Production, depending on the game, sometimes you can go right into 2D, right into 2D animation, or right into 2D, right into building, environment stuff for 2D. So that's 2D pre-production to 2D production. Well, in your case, it's 2D pre-production to 2D production. Okay. Then we can go into production, which is actually, like I said, it's actually making the product. So this is actually making the product. Okay. Post-production is adding VFX and polish. Another way to say this is editing. Okay. Making sure that whatever goal that you had prior to beginning, are we in that place? Have we hit this goal? Are we good? Quality assurance is the game fun? Is the game broken? If the game's not fun and if the game's broken, you got to go back to one of the phases of production and find out where you went wrong. Okay? And then marketing and distribution is selling the game. Selling the product. Okay? That's what we're dealing with when we talk about phases of production. So now let's break the departments down. I feel like I'm going through this really fast. This is really good. I'm feeling really good about this video. Okay, phases of production, but now we're going to talk about departments. Now that we've identified the phases of production, now we have to get the asset control list into the correct department. Okay? So the department heads are going to have the ACL. And just so you know, it really is different types of asset control list. One type of asset control list is called the master, and another type you can call it department. Okay? So you have a master ACL, and you have a department ACL. What's the difference? So there would be maybe 2 or 3 people who have their hands on the master. Okay, let me zoom in over here so I can kind of spell this out a little easier. So person number 1 would be the producer. Producer is one. Another person is the scene assembler. And I would say probably the lead director. The lead director. Okay, those are the 3 people that would have it. So we're going to get into the department in a minute. So who would get the sub ACL list? Well, the department lead would. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's talk about the 2D department for a minute. So the 2D department, and staying in the congruence with how artists think. Okay, the 2D department should be operating in phases. Phase 1 of the 2D department is the inspiration. And just so you know, how I'm dividing this into these 3 phases is that these are 3 different type of artists with 3 different types of mindset. And what this does is, if you can learn how to apply this within your department, you're actually going to come to this place where your department's going to operate more efficiently. Okay, so inspiration. I also call this person the bottomless well. It's just this well of wellspring of creativity, and I've met people like this. Victor Laura, Vic, if you're listening, dude, you are the epitome of this. This dude's sketchbook was so intense. Dude, he had paper in his car. He's got paper at his house. I've never been to his house, but I know he's told me about this. He's got paper in his sketchbook. He's got paper in his backpack. He's got paper in the one room. He can't stop drawing. Can't stop. He'll be in the middle of a thought and they're like, oh, I gotta go do this over here. So he starts doing this over here. Oh, I can't stop. So like he might be developing this character and he's got a shoe under the bed at his house. He's got the breastplate in underneath the seat in his car. He drew the gauntlet or something on a napkin at the restaurant, and that's in his pocket. And he drew like this head of this character in his sketchbook, and it's real clean. So what happens is like we have all these component parts, and instead of making Vic try to just like do the thing, what we would do is we would give it to a blueprinter. The blueprinter, oh my God, this is the best job for me. Like I like until I would say about a couple years ago, I never really understood the power of the blueprint. Now, the blueprint is also known as a turnaround. So let's go ahead and look at some very very good examples of a blueprint. Since we got Photoshop open as well. So let's go into the YHWH Games folder, and we're gonna go look at Monster Caravan, and we're gonna go look at some teamwork that we did with Evan Silv, Donna Wen, and Cassandra Bonda and myself. So 4-person effort to try to get this character super solid. Again, this is going to take a second to open here. And so while that's opening, let's look at one of his breakdowns. Oh, come on, computer. So it's 10:04, by the way. This is a live demonstration. Everything that we're doing is live today on Twitch. And I really appreciate those of you who are joining in, and those of you who are watching the video later. Thank you for taking a look. You'll also notice that on my Twitch account, by the way, I've got some Boost over there. So that's a product. I'm an official affiliate salesperson for Boost Oxygen. It works for some people, doesn't work for some people, just like coffee. And for me, it's a replacement for caffeine. It also helps boost my creativity because you're getting oxygen to the brain. So, here we go. Let's go take a look at Evan Silv's drawing. Is this it over here? Okay, so Evan Silv, he drew this really awesome character. We call this creature Noxella. It means rock smiter in Hebrew. Rock smiter. So, in my professional opinion, this is one of the best drawings that he's ever done. And that's saying something because Evan's a fantastic artist. Like Evan is just he's one of my favorite creature artists. And I've known a few. So he drew this. And from here he broke it down. So if we go to his breakdown, he wanted us to be able to understand the component parts, right? So he gave us each individual piece. So what we really don't have in this drawing is what does this leg look on the backside or on the inside? Same thing with these arms. What do they look like? And then what does the belly look like? And what does the top of his back look like? Well, we really don't know, right? And you know what? I modeled this character out and didn't even realize I missed this whole spike. Dagnabbit. I might have to do that for the mail then. So while I'm talking, I'll go ahead and boot up 3D Max so you guys can see the model. So he drew the character out, and when I asked him to blueprint it, he kind of got a little iffy on me. That's okay. We got another artist named Cassandra. Cassandra is one of the most amazing people I've ever worked with. She just knocked this out of the park. Ha! Noxella knocked it out. That's funny. So she did this turnaround for us and really helped us understand what this character looked like. Alright, so what I did is I took her blueprint drawings, her turnarounds, her model sheet, all these vocabulary words are exactly the same, okay? And I put it on a slide for presentation so that people can understand, like, this is how YHWH Games does things. So we have the front, we have the side, we have the top view, we have the back view. And this helped me tremendously when I was creating the character, and I'll show you guys once Max boots how he ended up getting it in. So while Cass was doing the turnaround, I was coloring this bad boy. Well, bad girl. She's a lady. We gotta go back to the history, and there we go. So when I was coloring the character, I got to this place where I was like, man, I don't A, have time to deal with this, and B, what would it look like if I got some help in doing some crystallization on the side of his arm? So I asked Donna when. She jumped in on this and just started adding all of this magnificent color. And it doesn't matter how many times I see this drawing, I am just overly impressed with how amazing this looks. So that's the tackle, right? We all worked on this as a team effort. So this is a logo from Evan Silv. This is Donna Wen. This is myself, General Soundwave. All right. So that would lead us to the last phase of this, would be the polish phase. All right. I didn't forget. Max is still opening. We'll get to it. All right. Polisher. Polisher is typically the art director, the AD. Art director. Now the reason why I put the polish in this person's hands is because they understand that their primary goal in their job description is to work with the client. Okay? To work with the team. They've got to convey the vision to the client, and they've got to convey the vision to the team. If they're not doing those two things, they're a really bad art director. Sorry, guys. You have to know the needs of your client. Now, there's two types of clients when dealing with games. You have your investor client, and then you have your consumer client. Okay. When you're putting out artwork, you need to make sure that your artwork is clearly communicated. Does your client like it? But more importantly, does your consumer like it? Okay. So let's come over here, and now that we understand the mindset on who we're getting to work on the art, this is where it comes into doing the actors again, the vehicles. I'm just going to call it Vex because it's just fast. Vehicles, the dynamic props. We're doing the environment. We're doing the architecture. We're going to do the static props. Static. That is some really bad text. Static props. Is it open? Nope. Oh, almost. Okay. This is essentially your 2D department. But there's more. There's more to the 2D department than just that. This is just how I was explaining before, how you break down some assets and how some artists think, right? But there's more to the department. The 2D department also has UI, UX. We also have visual effects. If you plan out your visual effects, man, your VFX team is going to be so happy because you're taking the edge off of what they do. And you know what? When I say that, I'm not trying to disclude the VFX team. The VFX team would have their own 2D artists that would pre-plan all of their effects. Okay, and the objective of laying your department out like this is so you get one person to do each one of these things, and then one-to-one, you develop your 3D asset. Okay? One-to-one. You get 6 people to do this, you get 6 people to do the equivalent in the 3D department. Okay, now animation, I'm going to talk about animation in a separate slide, so you don't have to worry about that. So while that's loading, show you this character. Okay, that's opening. Now again, you don't have to do this. I do it because this is efficient for me. I like my quality time and budget ratio. I like to be able to pay and get different people involved and help them with their skill. So I'm okay with doing that, right? So you have the 3D department, and one-to-one. But you have a pipeline. So I'm going to explain the character development pipeline, how we do things at YHWH Games. I know that there's other ways to do it. I'm just telling you guys how we do it. So we conceptualize the person. Now this is how we do skeletal meshes, okay? We conceptualize it. Then we go to the modeling phase, okay? With the right poly count. We try to hit our target poly count here. We know there's going to be more. We get it. But when we do this, what it does is it allows us to branch into 2 different departments at the same time. We can send it to anim department. Okay, and then over here it stays in the modeling department. Stays here. And we can do the UV unwrap. We can do the texturing and sculpt. Excuse me. Okay, just checking my messages. Okay, UV unwrap, you have the texturing and sculpt, you have materials. Alright, and then over here on this side, you do the rig, you do the skin, you actually animate the character and pose it, and then you remerge it. It's called a final. And then what you do is you light it and render it. And you deliver this back to who? Okay? You deliver this model to the client. You deliver it to the client because the objective is to take the 3/4 polished view from the 2D department, and then we want to say, okay, look, this is what you're paying for, and now you show it to the client in this 3D model and you say, this is what we've produced. And typically the 3D model is looking better than the 2D model. Okay, typically that's what's supposed to happen. Deliver 10x rule. Always deliver 10 times the amount of what you can possibly do. All right. Now when you give this to the client, you make the client happy, and he lets you go on to the next thing. Now, once you're done with this model, whether it's lit and rendered, you can light it and render it in post-production, or you can light it and render it in the engine. It doesn't matter. You're just going to light it and render it and give it to the client. Now let's look at the 3D animation department. 3D animation department. So I say 3D department and 3D animation department. It's parallel, but it's kind of under, but they're kind of working together. So that's why I call it the 3D department. 3D animation department, they're a very special department because their whole objective of an existence is to tell the story. Tell the story. That's their objective. Can you tell the story? So, we're going to take the script. I would just put the script down. We're going to talk about the storyboard. Okay, you get the script, storyboard, and we're going to start doing blocking. Whoops, my bad. I skipped a step. Animatic. And that is the storyboard plus audio. Okay, we'll get into the audio department here in a little while. Once you're done now, you can start blocking it out. Blocking / timing. All right. And these are your grayscale animations. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do polish pass. Okay. Once we're done with our polish pass, then we're going to go into editing. And then we're going to basically replace all our polish pass with the animatic panels. And once we're done with the editing, We're going to do the rendering. And then we have Final Cut. Okay. This is typically the process of what the 3D animation department goes through. Now, when I say Final Cut, you're either editing in an engine or you're editing in post-production, like Nuke or After Effects or Premiere or whatever you're doing in it. Okay. We're going to need some more slides, aren't we? So let's... All right, so let's continue with the 3D department. We've got another lad we have to bring up, which is the 3D technical artist. 3D tech department. Okay. Technical artist. So, just so you guys know, to take it further in understanding the psychology of an artist, you have visual art. So let's put that over here. We'll just put this in parentheses as visual versus technical. All right. Visual art versus technical art. And then, by the way, I'm going to make a little note about the 3D concept. All right. Because I did not address that before, and we're going to go back and talk about that in a minute. So, visual artist versus technical artist. So, when I say the person is going to create a rig, what they're going to do is they're going to create a body rig and a head rig for a character, sometimes hands for motion capture. Okay, I'm very well aware that there's motion capture for hands. Okay, so I don't want to exclude that, but typically hands and body work together. Okay. So you have the body rig, you have the head rig, you have the hand rig. The rigger's responsibility is to create tools for both the IK and FK handles. IK and FK. So what is IK and FK? As a matter of fact, I should be able to show you right now. Hey, look at that. We got something open. Okay, so if I take this little handle over here and I move it around, this is called IK. I am taking a handle. Like basically, if I walked up to you and I took your hand and I started shaking it around like this, and your arm's going to be flopping around like that, that's an outside force handling an object, an IK chain, inverse kinematics. It's inverse energy. Kinematics is energy and motion. So then we have forward motion, FK. So that's basically if I come over here and I hit this rotation, okay, this is forward kinematics. This is the object itself that's driving itself. Same thing with the tail. If I come over here and I start doing this, this is also FK. Okay, IK is outward, FK is itself, or inward if you want to. Now let's see what this looks like. Okay, very happy with this animation. This is Noxella, guys. So basically what we did was we took our character, our blueprint, and I started modeling the character out. Very, very happy with how this character came out. Now if I hit stop on this, put it back in rig mode, and I pull out the rest of the character, this is essentially what we're going to be exporting out. And we're in the texturing phase right now. I really got to get this thing done. But this is what the character is going to look like. Each one of these green items are going to be crystals. All right. And we got to make it look like the drawing, guys. It's going to take some time, but we got to do it. It's our staple creature. Okay, so let's go ahead and reset this. So, like, just to let you guys know, what was my part in doing this character? I built the character, I unwrapped the character, I'm in the middle of sculpting the character, and I rigged the character and animated the character. A lot of work. Excuse me. Reset, don't save. Pardon me. Yes, I want to reset. So, part of the rigger's responsibility is also to divide the character into two major, I would say they're major classifications of upright creature. Okay, so you have plantigrade. Plantigrade, digitigrade. What's the difference? So let's look up a character. Oh, poor internet. Just checking the chat. Most people. Hey, what's up? I got a visitor. Hey. Oh, unless that's just probably me. Never mind. Oh, got excited over nothing. Okay. Hey, get over there. Okay. Let's do... What is that? Flamingo, right? Oh, you know, well... Whoa, where's my text? Boy. All right. See how the flamenco's legs, the knee is backwards? Okay, that is digitigrade. Plantigrade is how humans walk with the knee forward. Like an elite from Halo. Let's see, elite. Halo. Okay. Question. Is this plantigrade or digitigrade? It's still plantigrade. Just basically what you're dealing with is what we consider a horse link bone, but it's just still a foot. So we've got the femur, right? And we've got the tibia. And then we've got the foot bone. And then the toe bones. Okay. The knee is still facing forward. So we're still plantigrade. It's just the foot bone is different. That's all. The foot and calf bone. The proportions are different. The thigh bone is also longer. I'm sorry. Shorter. Calf is longer than the thigh. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to close that. That's all right. We'll come back. So we got plantigrade, digitigrade. What else do we have? We have different types of rigs. We have biped. Now I don't mean 3D Studio Max biped. I mean walking on two legs. We have quadruped. What else do we have? We have hexaped. Like an ant. Okay. And then at this point, we go omniped. Okay. Omniped could be octopus. It could be centipede. It could be tarantula. Okay. You have different rigs for different situations and different characters. The technical department is supposed to be handling both rigging and skinning. Middle East is the backdrop. Oh, you know what? If I'm going to do this, let me do something that's actually applicable. Now, just so you guys know, you know, my 18 years of experience is mostly animation. Where is my mesh? There we go. Should be this one here. Crash test dummy rock. Alright, so if I take this guy, hopefully I got my skin on it, very good. Okay, now if I come over here to this spot, and I open up my skin modifier, and let's grab this bone. Now something as funky is going on when I animate this character. It's like there's influence happening. Oh, so there's a problem too. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So this this white area means there's no influence here. All right. So that means something else has grabbed that influence. We're going to grab it back. All right. So we're going to assign influence to this now. So that means over on the other side of the arm, it's probably very similar. So let's check the other side. So this is the hand bone. So let's look at left hand. Yep, sure is. Let's go ahead and fix that too. Ah. Okay, there we go. Then we're going to sign that up just like that. So there was just some awkward pinching that was happening when I was watching the last characters. Let me save this before I forget. So what we can do is we can test out just by scrolling through the bone list and find out which bone is not working. I don't want to get too far into this, but it's kind of a fun demonstration because what we're dealing with, this is called the skinning process. All right, this is binding the mesh to the bone. So we're just going to come through here and see if there's some other. And I'll know, like if this area lights up another color, then I know that there's a problem. Okay, that's good. Maybe it's just the way the edge is pitching. It's possible. So if I zoom out, okay, and we look at the character objectively. What is it? What is skinning exactly? Skinning is like understanding there's polygons, understanding there's triangles inside of the mesh. But every time a edge, basically these white lines intersect, it turns into a vertice. Okay. And so like this vertex right here, for example, is going to be assigned to a bone. Let me see, is it going to be this one? Let's just look. Let's just look at the head, for example. It's already lit up. So that means all of these vertices by default are being influenced. And how we determine this is red has the most influence, and as it fades away, it turns to blue. So it's like hot and cold, right? So blue has influence, and for those of you very far away, that's what it looks like. So heavy influence, middle influence, less influence, it gets farther away because we got to worry about the next bone. Same kind of thing here. So this basically what I can do is I can open the jawbone and stuff, and it'll look good. That's what the skinner's job is. The rigger and the skinner, usually the same person. Rig is the person who creates all the controls, all of the bones, and then the skin. Then he's got to skin and bind the 3D mesh to the bones. All right, and that's that. So let's save that up. Reset. Yes, let's reset. Okay, keep the RAM clear. All right, that's the rigger's duty. Rigging, and then once you're done with the rig, then you do the skin. Sometimes a technical department, all right, they'll do materials. They'll write some tools. All right, but we're gonna get into the toolers later. That's more programming. So let's back up for a second and go back and readdress my little pipeline over here. Now, just so you guys know, I am completely aware that this model, in terms of AAA companies, are obsolete. And what I mean by that is, nowadays what happens is there's an opposing. Let's just break out the slide and show you guys the difference between the pipeline, because there is more than one pipeline, and I did mention that. Now we don't need the client words. Let's just break this out. Control J. All right, let's put this up top. Let's make a new slide. Okay. So the opposing pipeline or the newer pipeline, what's happening is that when I say concept, it's 2D concept. But what's happening nowadays is that people are building a 3D concept, okay, and they'll millions and billions of polys or whatever. I don't know if we can get into billions yet, but millions of polys. We go from millions of polys to retop, which means that we're retracing the character. And once we're done retopping the character, then you can break it out into UVW, or we can basically, let's just copy this over because it'd be a little faster for conversation's sake. All right, let's just do that. And so, like, and then just depending on the studio, they might do something like 3D concept in ZBrush or Mudbox. Okay, ZBrush, and then they take it to Marvelous Designer, right? And so they're taking this really heavy model and they're retopping it. And then, you know, depending on the situation, on how many polys it is, it could be reversed in this order. Regardless, they're getting closed, right? And once they get closed, then they can go into modeling and animation phase. The only reason why I don't like this model is because what has a tendency to happen is that the model dictates what the animator's doing. And this is wrong. I feel like the video game industry is really faulted in that area because the edge loops and the knees and in the joints and in the pelvis and in the back are always wrong. And that's where we get into grid back and all of that other stuff. And, you know, I'll get into that a little later. Shit, you know what? Let's just do it now. You know, I may even have a folder in here called What Not to Do. Let me check that while you enjoy some Jay Gibbons. Boo, did I just lose my internets? I did. I totally lost it. What the heck? Grid back. Let's go find out. Do I have a what not to do? I might have it in my tutorials.
Let's go. Thank you for tuning in.
I'm trying to remember where I have it.
Hey, what if loving was up to us? Wait, isn't loving up to us? Well, if love was up to us, then our loving would be up.
It was very necessary, atonement was substitutionary, and now we spitting the truth for every monastery. The eagle came to the aviary, praying over these rats like Tom and Jerry, preaching to the Pharisees, speaking to the verily, died like heavy deep.
All right. Here we go. This back is what not to do. This back is closer because what's happening is that the wireframe is in contour with what happens in an actual human structure. This is also what not to do. This is NURMS Alright, so this is 3D Max with a heavy NURMS Mesh Smooth on it, or Turbo Smooth. The muscles are being contoured with the scapula. This is sort of kind of close, but I can't actually analyze this correctly without seeing a better wireframe. This is also what not to do. This is what I call grid back. Everything is going from right to left, right to left, right to left, right to left, right to left. Now I'm going to show you one of my characters and explain why that's wrong. Alright, let's go to, whoops, he's going to be in Monsters this time around. So this is a character that Don and I are working on. I've only put about maybe 6 or 7 hours into this. I'm actually really happy with how this is coming out, like really, really happy. Really happy. Sorry, I worked on the coloring for it last night, 3/4 view, just to try to get an idea of my materials. Okay, so again, I could have started this inside a ZBrush. I just don't like to start and begin my sculpts in a sculpting program. I just don't work that way. What I do is I try to create an edge flow where the muscles already go by default. So this way, when I get inside of ZBrush, man, everything fits where it's supposed to go. Everything's already ready. I mean, look at that back. It's like this is exactly what the human back does. Let's look at the human back muscles. Human back muscle anatomy. Check it out. You got a V here and a V here. Edge flow, done, baby. V here. Let's go rotate towards the back. V. Everything works. The flow is right there. And that means I'm going to be able to get this motion out of the character because I don't have grid back. And what about my elbow joint? Elbow joint, I'm going to be able to pinch right here and open up towards the back. Same thing with the knee. I got a really healthy knee over here. Okay. My ankle's really good. Got my 3 edge loops with my ankle. And see, that's the thing that most people don't understand about in regards to character creation and development. Now, I gotta admit, I'm not the happiest with the forearm because I know that there's a twist that happens. From here, it twists around. It twists around. It twists around. Because you got to be able to do this because you got 2 bones. You have the radius and the ulna inside of the forearm, all right? So I do have that twist beginning to happen. It's there. It's just not very extremely prominent. It's not, see, like it's going, but it's just not, you know, heavy. That's okay. When I get into the sculpting phase, it'll come through for me. You know, I got the abs. It's going to bend here in the stomach correctly. Now, I also want to explain something else while I'm on the topic of bending. All right. So Unity has this really BS system for animation, and I really can't stand their logic in regards to how characters bend because they only want 2 bones on mobile for the spine. And so if I do gymnast back bend, okay, this is the, if I remember correctly, I think this is one of the images that they use in their documentation. So I was trying to find a larger image. Let me just kick up large real quick because I know it's probably super tiny on your screen. Oh, there we go. That's the image. Okay. You see how the back is round right here, and the back is like the front area, the abdomen is extremely straight, and it's kind of almost at an obtuse angle right here. Sorry, let me turn down some givens for a second. This is their logic, that you can create a really good bend just using 1 bone here and then 1 bone here. Now, you have to ask yourself, how many games have you actually played where this is a thing? How many games have you played where character, touch, Oh, I'm sorry, same character. How about we just do touching toes while standing? Like, this is more what I was looking for. Okay. See how her back is completely arched? You can't do that very well with two boxes. A box here and a box, you know. It's a spine. A spine has multiple links inside of the character. And so when you're trying to bend and twist your character and you've only got two boxes to go on, it's really garbage. I just don't like it at all. And there's no way for you inside of Unity to actually adjust how many spine links your character should have. Because what if you're not doing it for mobile? What if you're doing it for PC? Then you're still stuck with only two bones. So that really wasn't thought out very well, just to say. Like this, I can totally understand. You could almost put one box in there for this. But, you know, most people have a bend in their spine, a curvature in their spine. It looks like this to me. And this is me being a picky animator, okay? Let's see if I can find another really good example. I mean, this is a fantastic example. But you don't see this happen anyways inside of a game. You don't see this happen inside of a game. You don't see it. But I can tell you, just as an animator, it just is not a comfortable place to be in. So, going back to edge loops, this is why I start with my model over here. And yes, there's nothing stopping me from taking this model that's already like super set up. My poly count is fantastic. I'm just super happy with the way that this thing has just come out and the speed in which I've done it. By the way, for those of you who don't know, these are tails. And for those of you new to game development, we make it straight, we put bones in here, and then we can actually curve it when we're done. Okay. Let's move on. So that's the two different methods in the pipeline, two major methods in the pipeline. And I would say that this is more AAA and this is more independent / mobile. But to be really honest with you, I really feel like this is a AAA way of doing things. It's just that when you can give your modeling, your sculpting department the right tools with the right anatomy, your quality is just going to increase. So it takes a little bit more time in the beginning to get all your stuff right, but once you have it, you're good to go. All right, so we talked about the animation department, talked about the 3D concept department. So let's go ahead and remove this. While we're over here, why don't we talk about audio real quick? We'll just put the audio department over here. So what up to Troy? If you ever get a chance to see this, my friends, much love. So let's talk about audio. There's 4 types of audio. Ambient sound. There is voiceover or dialogue. Okay, it just depends on what studio you're at. They'll say one thing or another. You also have OST, official soundtrack. Okay, and then you have sound effects. Foley / sound design. Okay. Ambient sound are crickets, cicadas, birds chirping, just random noise outside. Could be even traffic. Okay. Voiceover and dialogue is counting the lines of dialogue. So when you have a script, you've got to count. It's always healthy when you're talking with other actors and other talented individuals. How many lines of dialogue is your script? Oh, well, it's this many. Well, how many dialogues would my part be? Well, it's this. So count your lines of dialogue. Official soundtrack is according to level. Okay, level or scene. Sometimes it's introduction. When you have a character, you have a specific theme song you're introducing. Sound effects are, right, dropping your pen on the surface. Street Fighter is notorious for sound effects, right? So that's audio department, pretty much in a nutshell. And there are 2 types of individuals that work in the audio department. You have your audio engineer, so you have basically your AE, and you have your AC, your audio composer. Most of the time, it's not called AC; it's actually just called composer. All right. So what's the difference? Audio engineer is the designer of sound, and it's usually the person who takes the composition of the music and mixes it, makes it sound sweet, gets it ready for album, okay, gets it ready for putting it up on the interwebs for the consumer, okay. So the composer makes the music, and inevitably everything is going to get filtered down to the AE. So the AE is typically the lead, okay. Not always the case, but in some cases AE can be the lead. Now we'll talk about the visual effects department for a minute. I got a little bit of room over here. Why not? Okay, let's talk about visual effects. Visual effects department consists of water, earth, wind, fire, metal. Okay, for those of you who are familiar with this, this is usually known as the Asian Five, the five elements system. Okay, but there's actually more. There is sun and moon. There is light and dark. There is good and evil. And I would also like to say righteousness and divine. Essentially the same thing. So, for those of you who play Dungeons and Dragons, there's this scale that people work on for character development. Lawful, chaotic, good, evil, and good. And they want you to plot out your character. Is your character a lawful good, lawful evil, chaotic good, chaotic evil? And like, you know, if you've fallen over here or something, or like over here. That's part of the ways you develop your characters. But I don't like that system because God is outside good and evil, for he created good and evil to display his glory. Alright? So that means there's a third standard that he abides by called righteousness, and good is in the middle. That's how I see that. And anything that is evil is inherently already demonic. Okay? Inherently, you have demonic activity. Okay? So, I have this little philosophy that I've developed that I teach here, that each one of these things has 3 states. And I'm not going to get into it. That's something that you guys can talk to me about as a client. So water has liquid, solid, and gas, but so does earth or fire. If you look at fire, for example, you have flame, you have smoke, and you have lava. Liquid, solid, gas. Okay? If you apply that liquid, solid, gas technique to each of these, you'll find that you have different states and you have different ways to be creative according to your visual effects. Alright? So, now, I did mention that we have a producer who has the master list, the scene assembler, and the lead director. I'm just going to insert this in here, and then we're going to go over to programmer. So we've talked enough about the different departments that we have a 2D department, so there's going to be a 2D lead. But the 2D lead doesn't need any of the 3D assets. He doesn't need that list. He just needs to know what he needs to do and get his people doing the right stuff. 3D department doesn't need audio. 3D department doesn't need visual effects. Even though a visual effects person could be in the department and VFX could be absorbed in the animation department, typically it's 2 different departments, okay? So that's what I meant by there's usually 2 lists. There's usually 1 list per department, and then there's a master list which only a few people actually take a look at. So let's get into the programmer real quick, the programming department. So for those of you who have been following me for a couple years, my old students that are now my friends, if you guys ever have an opportunity to look at this, I've updated the programming department because of the what I've been learning at the University of Houston. I have some fantastic fantastic people that I work with over there, and I'm very, very happy that I was and honored that they asked me to go teach game design over there. So they taught me some new things about programmers. So programming department looks like this. So you have the lead guy, which is also called the designer. Okay, designer. Then you have the hardware programmer. You have a software programmer. You have a scripter. You have a tooler, right? Yep. And then lastly, you have a debugger. And it's good that we talk about this in the same slide. I want to talk about quality assurance, okay? So the designer, he's the person that's going to look at the whole entire game overall and understand the different components about how everything is going to be able to look like on paper, and then he can delegate the different work out to different people. So, for example, there was a designer that created Unreal Engine 3, Unreal Engine 4, and Unreal Engine 5 that's going to come out in the next few years. I know that they're going to be working on that if they haven't been doing already. And then also, like Unity, you have a Unity designer. Somebody designed that program. But then they also had to work with an engineer that had to communicate with the hardware to the software, right? Communicate to the graphics card. So that's where the hardware programmer comes in. As an engineer, right? This is an engineer. Now there is a software engineer. And software engineers like working on object-oriented scripting, where they start with an actor and then they extend the class to a vehicle or to a gun, okay? And then so what a scripter will do is say, okay, I have a gun script, but now how can I turn this into an AR-15? How can I turn it into an Uzi? How can I turn it into a pistol? How can I turn it into a sniper rifle? So the scripter is going to be very specific on what's going to happen. Same thing. He can be, scripter can say, okay, I have an actor class, but now I want to make it Tifa, and now I want to make it Cloud, now I want to make it Barrett, now I want to make it, Red 13. So the scripter is going to go down and break down the script further. Lastly, we have next we have a tooler. Toolers are pretty awesome, and this was a new one for me because what they do is they create tools for artists. For example, I had this one guy who I don't want to mention by name because he's an asshole, but he did do something pretty cool. For Otaku Brawlers, he made us a menu system that you could add a piece of inventory. So the inventory is, what's the name of the piece of equipment? What slot does it go in? Is it head? Is it chest? Is it boxing gloves? Is it shoes? Is it pants? Is it equipped? How much does it cost? How much does it sell for? What icon is associated with it? What mesh does it call? Is there visual effects that are assigned to it? What sound effects go with it too? All of this stuff is a nice tool, and it's supposed to get added to inventory. That's what that does. Toolers do that. And then, of course, debuggers are the ones who are always solving problems. So this is the programming department. Okay, programming department. So let's talk about quality assurance. Okay, there's two phases, if you really want to say three. Let's just do three. Let's just do alpha, beta. Okay, alpha, beta, and we'd say gold. We're done, right? So let's look at it over here. What is the point? What is the point of testing? The point of testing is to look for crashes. The most important aspect of the game is to play it, right? It's to play it. So you want to look for crashes. Let's get rid of that R. That's kind of a trashy R, isn't it? Okay. Alpha. Alpha is looking for the hard crash. What does that mean? That means when you're testing your game out, let's say you're testing it on your computer, and you hit play, and you've done compiled your game, and you're working, everything's working okay, and then for some reason you do something, and then it kicks you. Not only does it kick you out of the system, it totally turns off your engine. It could turn off your machine. That's a hard crash. If it kicks you out of the software or turns your machine off, that's a hard crash. That's really bad. If you have that on your device, right? I don't know why I keep looking at the mic like there's the camera here. Sorry. The phone, right? If we have the phone, we put a game on the phone, and it crashes, turns off the phone, or it kicks you out of the game, that's a hard crash. That's what you're looking for in beta. When you think that all the hard crashes have been found, and there's no more hard crashes anymore, then what you're looking for is you're looking for the soft crashes. Soft crashes is like, let's say you're playing Streets of Rage. For those of you who don't remember, or Final Fight, right? Old beat 'em up platformer. I like to give examples while I'm working, right? There we go. Let's say you're fighting a bunch of enemies, and usually when you're done beating all the enemies up, a little arrow flashes that says go, go, go. But what happens if you're playing and all the enemies are defeated and there's no go arrow? You walk all the way to the left, walk all the way to the right. Where's the enemy at? Well, the enemy may have spawned under the ground or behind a building. So the enemy is still in the game. There's no failsafe to bring the character back into the map. And so that's called a soft crash. Or what happens if the game freezes? That's a soft crash. Is that a clown? Oh, it's blood. Alright. So the point of testing is to look for crashes. The secondary aspect is looking for bugs. Now, just so you guys know, QA is a career. It's a career. You can get paid full-time for just testing just games, doing the same game all the time, okay? So, when you're looking for crashes and when you're looking for bugs, excuse me, you can find graphics bugs. Okay, you can find graphics bugs. Like Superman. Superman's got his S on his chest. What if the S isn't there, but all the other colors are there? You can find animation bugs. You press a button and it doesn't call an animation. Let's say there's environment bugs. Let's say there's you're spawned in and your character's on the ground. You know he can walk around, but there's this gap between him and the actual ground. Somehow the ground plane got moved down. Okay, there could be lighting bugs. So I have this whole running list of this different inventory of bugs, but yeah, there's just different bugs that you can find, and it all goes into its own ACL. And what's really funny about the ACL is that on a whole, when you're creating an ACL for the other departments, it's a creative ACL. But when you start with your ACL inside of quality assurance, there is no agenda, just the list of stuff that you're looking for. And then you find a bug and you log it. You find a bug and you log it. Not only do you log it, but you have to say how you made the bug and where the bug was. What's the name of the bug? Where you found it? What's the problem? Did it crash? Because that's how you prioritize your bugs, is did it crash or not. Okay? Now, what else do we have? You know, one other department I really didn't talk about, and we'll just do it briefly, is we'll look at UI UX. All right. don't know why I keep changing the mouse size. So let's look at UI, UX. What is the UI and UX department? User experience used to be called the graphics department or the GUI department. Regardless, it's now user experience. The objective is theming, and consistency. Okay, theming and consistency. Iron Man's information inside his helmet. Let's look it up real quick. Iron Man helmet. I might have to put interface on the inside of it. Inside will work. Alright. Iron Man's stuff. If you notice from movie to movie, it changes. Okay? Just so you're aware, the objective of the user experience department is to create a experience where this graphic design carries into the DVD menu, it carries into the website, and it carries into the apps, and it carries into the video game and the movie. Okay, so it's this theme, this running theme of stuff that's going to happen. All right. Okay, let's move on. They also don't just do that. They do marketing material. They do business cards. They're responsible for game flow. In other words, does the game make sense from level 1 on? They're responsible for trade shows. They're responsible for... What else are they responsible for? Man, I'm getting tired. I've been talking for 2 hours, right? You guys who do this stuff, this Twitch stuff for a living, it's impressive. Let me get my water. All right, gotta wake up. All right. I'm missing some major stuff. Color palette and mood. All right. And what else do we have? Something major. Just vibe into the music here. Well, I don't want to waste too much more time on this. Something will come up. Usually user experience and quality assurance kind of hand in hand. User experience is on the front end, quality assurance is on the back end. What other department am I missing that's a key component in this? Typically the marketing department, guys. The marketing department is the most important, believe it or not, it's the most important department in the whole thing. Let me prove it. We got Mickey D's, right? Mickey D's makes a burger. Yay, it's delicious. Does McDonald's make the best cheeseburger in the whole world? Does it? No. Well then, who makes the best cheeseburger in the whole world? If you're kosher, you don't eat cheeseburgers, but it's still a good question. We don't know. We don't know who makes it. So, do you have to be the best in order to make dinero? Nope. Actually, nope, you don't have to be the best. McDonald's got that on lock. And we know that McDonald's is outselling almost anybody else. And the reason why is because of advertising. Whee! Okay? It is the most important aspect of your whole project. So when should you start marketing your project? Let's go back. Let's look at some things here. Back over here. When should you start marketing your project? What phase do you market? You market at previs. Right in the beginning. Right here. Day one. Once you have something to show the public, start building a following. Once you have something, get it in there. Get it out. Start throwing it across the internet and build a following. You got to build a following so that by the time you get over here to marketing and distribution, people can actually like, hey, this is good. I'm waiting on this. Let's do it. Right? Okay, that's it. And that's pretty much it, guys. That is the stuff for making a game. Let me go check my notes and make sure I'm not missing anything. The last thing I want to do is miss something here. Docs. I think I got it all. Oh, let's talk about level design and fun factor, because why not? First of all, like I want to reiterate some stuff here. I think that this is important, especially for you, Esteban. I think that this is important for you to see how all this stuff flows together. Okay, so let's look at this. And when you start with the game, you start with an idea. All right, and that idea has got to get written down. And what you want to do is you want to convey it in what we call a game design document, but there's methods and means to do it. So for those of you University of Houston students, you're getting this lesson a little early. First is, let's do a 5-sentence synopsis. All right? Can you communicate to your neighbor what your game's idea is in 5 sentences? Can you do it? What you're going to do is you're going to add 5 additional paragraphs to this. And so this is called a 6-paragraph treatment. Okay? So what you do is you take your idea, you describe, this is your 5-sentence synopsis. You take your idea, you describe your idea in steps. But you also want to include every major function in the game inside of your 5-sentence synopsis. So you consider this a summary. Okay? Then you tack on 6 additional paragraphs. So it's really 5. It's 5 additional paragraphs plus the one that you just made, which is a total of 6. And each paragraph, you are going to reiterate and break down your previous sentences. And then when you're done, what you're going to do is you're with your paragraph, with your treatment, you're going to start to develop a game design document. And what is included in this game design document is you have a script. Okay? You have your asset control list. Okay? And then we're going to start populating it with artwork. So we're going to get into that in just a second. We're going to do our breakdowns. So we just put art over here. Art. Okay. And once this game design document is moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to get this over to the 2D department. Okay. We're going to get this to the 3D department. And what's going to happen is the artwork is going to start getting plugged in to this document. Okay. We obviously can't get audio in here, but the game design document is going to go to the audio department. Maybe we can get some visual effects in here. For sure, we know that we can get levels in here. Okay? And I'm including the drafts. I'm including the finals. We want to start getting props. Okay? Start populating this thing over and over and over again. Okay? So let's look at this game design document. Even though it's going to these different departments, everybody's contributing to this document. And let's look at levels for a minute. Levels, this is a very simple thing. Level design, a scene assembler. Also known as a level designer. They are two different jobs, but sometimes they're the same job. Okay? Now, I got to tell you guys, the scene assembler is typically the crankiest person on the project. You have to be nice to the scene assembler. Scene assemblers, if you guys are listening, I appreciate you guys so much. I have worked as a scene assembler before. Your primary concern as a scene assembler is you're responsible for thousands and thousands of assets. Is every 2D piece of art in there? Is every icon in? Is every 3D model in? Is every texture in? Is every material in? Is every animation in? Are the cutscenes in? Are the props in? Everything has got to go through this person. And they are a cranky person. Inevitably, the reason why they're cranky is because people don't name their shit correctly. SKCHHRO name _00_00. Skeletal mesh. It's a character or an actor. It's a hero. What's the name? This is his outfit number 1. This is how many copies are in the scene. That's how this breaks down. I'll do it again. Skeletal mesh. It's a character. It's a hero. What name is it? What outfit is it wearing? How many copies of it is there in the scene? Name your stuff right, guys. I'm not going to go over a naming convention for every single department. That is left up to the studio you go work for. If you come work for me, I'll tell you the name of our convention, but this is not information that I give away. All right, at least not in this video. So the scene assembler has, if you're assistant, if you got enough budget, get that person an assistant. So this way everything passes through the assistant's hands. Is it, there should be a little checklist. Is it named right? Are all the files associated with it? Is it exported out correctly? So this way there's just a filter, okay? Excuse me. Level designer. Level designer is the person who's going to take all of these assets in the library and start making levels out of it. Levels are also known as scenes. So it's really the same thing. Level designer, scene designer is the same thing. Set designer, same thing. Okay. But the level designer's job is to say, okay, you have level 1, you have level 2, you have level 3, you have the end. And does it transition? Does it work? You have the start. Okay. Every level should be tested separately. Just to kind of go back to this right quick. When should you start testing? As soon as you have a product to test. Once the pre-visualization is done, get it out. Just start testing it. It'll make everybody's life easier. Now, just to kind of run this back, You have all these thousands and thousands of assets. You're inside of an asset library. You're putting all this stuff together. You got to make sure that the level design is cohesive and coherent. This is what makes this situation possible. Okay. When you make a game, the objective is you got to find this window. And this window is called fun. There's a tighter window, which I don't like, which maybe not even that much. Right there. The window for fun is a wide window. It's not too hard. The game's not too easy. It's not so hard that you say this game sucks and want to put it down, and the game's not so easy that you say it sucks and you want to put it down. But this one right here, this window, this tiny scientific window, is what we call addiction. And one thing that we didn't talk about in this podcast is why do people play video games? Number one reason is because of escapism. They want to escape this life and not deal with all their crap that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And so they end up playing a game. And the fun window, they want to live here because it's fun, but it's not so fun that they're sacrificing their children for. Right? Well, let's go back to B. But there's this break in the middle of this. It's a sweet spot in the funness where, in my opinion, death occurs. And in the video game industry, there's not a lot of accountability in regards to video game addiction. Part of the reason why video game companies want the addiction is because addiction leads to money. But it's not worth sacrificing somebody's life for. It's just not. If you have video game addiction, you have to go get help. You have to. You can't ignore it. If you're sacrificing your friends and family in order for you to have such an addiction to escapism, you need help. And this is true for drugs and alcohol abuse too. It's interesting that they call it drug and alcohol abuse, but they don't call it video game abuse. It is an abuse because you're abusing other people because of you're trying to get your addiction in. I have a friend who has a friend. His son is addicted to video games so much. His parents threw him out, and he bums off of everybody in his life. And all he wants is, on a daily basis, is his next World of Warcraft credit card. What do they call those? Payment cards? You put money on it and you can pay for your game. Gift cards. I feel really bad, and my friend was like, "Hey Vince, do you know if there's anything that you can do to talk to this person?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd talk to him, but the guy won't talk to me. I don't know what's going on, but video game addiction is a very serious business." But you know what's really interesting about this? Number one, this is a science. Video game addiction is a science. They have strategic analysts day in and day out that try to figure out in their game how do they make it so addictive that people don't want to play it. I mean, that people don't want to put it down. And so what they've done is they knew that video games in the old days, it had a start and it had an end, and it was definitive. And once the game was over, it was over. But the way that the games are created nowadays, games are created cyclical. Okay? So there's no start and there's no end. It just keeps going, and it never ceases. And that's the game model that World of Warcraft is on, and so on and so forth. And they also learned that if you can also make it not only addictive, but if you can add competition, when you add competition into the mix, it becomes even more addictive, because you're cultivating a group of relationships of video game addiction. Now, what's really funny about this is that esports is its own industry, and it's a sister product of the video game industry. They created a method and a means to say, hey, not only are video games acceptable, but you can make a living off of video games and get sponsors, and you can play video games like day in and day out. And at that point, what it does is it turns into a numbers game. South Korea has adopted StarCraft and created a national sport out of it. So you have corporate sponsorships sponsoring these people. And my God, if you ever watch a StarCraft tournament from South Korea, the hotkeys that they use, and it's just the rhythm and the adaptability to change. It's unbelievable how quick these tournaments get in and get out. 15 minutes. But what are we doing to the people? You know, they're so addicted to their muscle memory and their statistics and memorizing patterns and understanding their economy. They don't have lives. And it's a very, very, very sad state. And I feel very bad for those people. It's their choice too, right? But it's also, I think it's a shared responsibility between parent and video game company. And I'm just letting you guys know right now, I don't ever want to make a game that people get into when it's addicting. That's scary to me, okay? There's got to be some kind of accountability here. Maybe the ESRB should, instead of saying, is this game, you know, I got animated violence, what's your addiction rating? I think that should be a thing. Maybe that's something Yahweh Games will come up with at some point. Okay, let me see if there's anything else that I've got to do. So why am I making an emphasis on this game design document? Well, at the end, if you guys populate this with the right information, what this turns into at the end is a strategy guide. Okay, and you can sell this as a product. This is what's known as an upsell. How many times have you gone up in the GameStop and said, hey, I want to get this game, and they're like, hey, you want the strategy guide? And you're like, nah. But you're like, okay, I'll get it. They just upsold you. And all they did was give you the game design document on how the game is made. And people have made a living making game design documents. So this is a thing. What else do we want to know about this? I'm going to hit Control J over here for a second. Let's put all this stuff on a different slide. Because it is important, but I was wanting to really kind of get people to understand the flow of things. Okay, so once you have all these different departments and you have the different phases, let's go back to our phases. Here we go. 2D department lives in both of these. Production is the 3D department. Post-production is visual effects and polish. Then we got to get it over to QA. Is it fun? Is it broken? Then we can start marketing and selling it. All right. So 11:26. We've been on for almost 2.5 hours. And I think for the most part, I think I've really nailed it. I think I'll take a little bit more leeway to lecture on this right over here. Okay. No, did I do? I did do that. Start, middle. Okay, so just so you guys know, the way that a video game is structured is based off of theater. Okay, so you have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And it's an arc. So Act 1 is the conflict, or I should say it's the development. So you're developing. Act 2 is the conflict. And then Act 3 is a resolution. So games nowadays, what they're trying to do is, how can we have all three of these acts, but in an open-ended game like that? How can we do this? How can we structure it that way? I think Final Fantasy 15 is onto something with the way that they made their game. They created their game so that you can move start, middle, and end. Okay, start, middle, and end. But you can also go back in time and revisit memories. It's actually really genius. And so, like, when you go back and revisit memories, when you go forward through time again, you have all of that stuff that you revisited. So the game is virtually never ending, especially when they keep releasing new packs. I think that's pretty much it regarding that stuff. That's real quick, tiny lesson. User experience. Yeah, we got it. We have done it. Almost had everything I needed. Oh, tier assets. Ha! One of the ways you can actually, like, this is a cool little mini lesson. One of the ways that you can actually divide your asset control list is by priority. So ACL by priority. All right, ACL by priority. So what are your key functions? What are they? So separate them into tiers. And I learned this from our old friend named Josep Ferrano, Jose. He loves it when we call him Jose, right? Jose, he came up with this tier system. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 assets. Priority. Tier 1 assets are main functions. Okay? Our Tier 2 are our supporting functions. And then Tier 3 is nice to haves. Okay, nice to haves. So our main functions, Spider-Man, going back to Spider-Man reference again. Can we have a Spider-Man game if there's no web? It's going to be a really hard sell. Supporting functions would be a wall run. Nice to haves would be, what did Karen say? How many Spider-Man functions? Karen, Spider-Man functions. Let's see if she says. She said something like, you have like 197 functions. I thought that was pretty funny when she said that. Operation Training Wheels. Training Wheels Protocol. That was great. I guess it doesn't matter. The point is you're not going to put all those functions that Spider-Man has inside a game. You're just not going to do it. You don't have the budget for it. Maybe the new one would, but I don't even think you could remember all those functions. Okay? But those are nice to haves. It doesn't make or break your game. It's just nice to have in it. What makes or break your game is that right there. Your main functions. If your main functions suck, then you're probably not going to have a game. Supporting functions enhances gameplay. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else that I got to talk to you guys about. I think that's it, guys. I'll just go over my notes one more time here. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. I think we're good to go, guys. I appreciate you sticking around. This is a 2.5 hour video now, right? Let's check the clock. Man, I better be recording today. Come on, OBS. Don't let me down. Don't crash. 2 minutes 40. 2 hours 40 minutes. Mic is still going strong. I probably should have checked the mic along the way. But just so you guys know, I really, really appreciate you guys. And I appreciate you guys, what you're doing. I appreciate, you know, your efforts. I appreciate you wanting to learn. If you want to learn more, let's get you signed up in our course. Let's get you making some video game artwork. Let's see. Should probably talk about my YouTube channel. I've got some new ones now. I've got YHWH Games channel, which I'm having problems uploading artwork to, but we'll get that handled. We have Hebrews Noshing channel for those of you who want to lend an ear about my philosophy about God, and do it while we're eating. Sometimes I love food, but really what we're doing is we're noshing on the Word of God. We've got the General Soundwave channel, which is like a hub, and yeah, I think we're good to go. So I appreciate your time. And what else? What else can I tell you? I want to stick around, but I got stuff to do, and I need to eat some matzah. So, shalom, shalom.